Right, Mauricio Pochettino has now given his final press conference ahead of tomorrow's huge clash against Arsenal, and he has spoke about the players that will be in contention to play, the players that are ruled out through injury, and the players that are possibly going to be coming back into that lineup and need further assessment. I obviously gave my starting lineup pick earlier in the week when I previewed this game with Joel Bayer, so if you're interested in an in-depth analysis from both a Chelsea point of view and an Arsenal perspective, definitely head over to my channel and watch that video. But in this video, I want to give you lot the starting 11 that I believe that Mauricio Pochettino will pick to face Arsenal in tomorrow's game. I also want to give you lot the reasons why I believe that Chelsea can beat Arsenal in tomorrow's massive clash. So, if that sounds like a bit of you, make sure you're watching the video. People, before we get into it, welcome back to the Joey Knight podcast. Please do me a massive favour at the end of this video. If you like the content and you want to see more from myself, please hit the subscribe button and also click the bell so that you get a notification every time one of my videos goes live. Right, so as you can see on screen now, here is the team that I picked as my preferred 11 to face Arsenal. And the most notable thing probably is the fact that I've got Reece James in there. Now, if you look at the situation with Reece James, Reece was probably ready to come back in and maybe get 10 minutes or something like that against Fulham if we believe what we're sort of led to believe from the media, saying that he's been training on grass with the ball with the rest of the Chelsea first team for about a month now after his latest injury setback. But obviously, just before that squad was announced to face Fulham, we were told that Reece was going to serve a one-match ban for something that happened on the touchline in the game against Aston Villa. And for that reason, he didn't play against Fulham, and then he took the ban for the Burnley game. Now, I am very confident that Reece would have played at least a half an hour of football or some minutes to some sort of capacity in that Burnley game. However, we took the ban in that game, and obviously now this is the first match that he's truly back in contention for. Now, had Reece not had awful luck when it comes to injuries, I think we'd chuck him straight in there. He's the club captain for a reason. He's one of the first names on the team sheet if fit and available for us. And no matter how well Cucurella has done at deputising, no matter how good Melo Gusto has looked in his time in the team, you can't deny that Reece James is by far head and shoulders above any other right back we have in our squad at the moment. But because of Reece's sort of recent injury nightmare, I'm now starting to wonder whether or not Pochettino will put him in from the start, and I'm sort of swaying towards maybe Poch won't put him in from the start. So when I give you my team that I think Pochettino is going to announce, that's a little spoiler for you. Reece probably won't be in there. We also look at it, Cucurella at left back. Now, I was under the impression that Axel Disasi would not be featuring in this match. However, in Pochettino's press conference, he has now said that the likes of Reece James, Axel Disasi, Nicholas Jackson are all under assessment. So he hasn't made a decision on whether they will play or not yet. The only player that he has ruled out that isn't already on that sort of injury list that we know, has half the first team on, is Amanda Broja. Broja has picked up a bit of uncomfortable pain in his knee, something like that, on international duty for Albania. He won't be starting. To me, it doesn't matter all that much because I wouldn't have actually had him in from the start. But obviously, if Nico Jackson is not available, then that's going to be a problem. Anyway, Cucurella, I obviously put at left back because I did originally think the Axel Disasi wouldn't start. Now I'm leaning towards the fact that maybe he will start, so maybe that will change ever so slightly. And then the rest of the team is pretty settled. So, here is the team that I believe Mauricio Pochettino is going to pick. I'm going to flash it up on screen now. So, as you can see, I have swapped the right back from Reece James to Cucurella. Now, obviously, this is a big decision, isn't it? Because when you look at Cucurella in that right back slot, he's come in, and for me, he hasn't really put a foot wrong. I did speak to Joel Bayer the other day about this, and he said to me that maybe it's not so much that Cucurella has been really good, but because we've got such a low expectation of Cucurella, bearing in mind the sort of performances we saw from him last season, actually, because he hasn't let anyone down, we're sort of elevating ever so slightly. And maybe that is the case, but I do believe that he's a Chelsea player. We've got to get behind all of our players. He's never done anything like Lukaku and come out and give an interview against the club and things like that. So I do genuinely believe that if his mentality and his attitude is right, we should be able to forgive him for sort of very much below par performances on the pitch if his form starts to pick up a little bit. And not all players can go from 0 to 100 straight away. Maybe this is Cucurella building, and in a match like this, we could finally see just an absolute mustard performance from Cucurella, like we were seeing week in, week out at Brighton at times from him. And then he can stake a claim to becoming a first-team starter. So I would put him there instead of Reece, purely for the fact that I don't know if Reece is going to be ready. Now, my sort of theory on it was that if we're going to have Reece in for some minutes at all, I would rather have him in for the first half and maybe take a look at him, have a word with him at half-time. Not that Reece will ever want to come off the pitch, but maybe assess it at half-time and then bring him off. Because I do believe that as the match goes on, I think we're going to be right in this match. I was speaking to my friend earlier and I said to him, I think it's going to be a very close affair either way. And that means that around the 60-minute mark, when maybe, possibly you'd think about bringing Reece on, I do think it's going to be very tight. And for that reason, I think it's going to be fiery. I think there's going to be yellow cards and bookings going in. I think there's going to be fouls. And I do think that maybe it's going to be a more hostile, uncomfortable environment to come back into when you're coming straight back from injury. So for those reasons, I personally believe that maybe Reece should start the game. But not that Mauricio Pochettino said anything concrete here, but hearing the language he sort of used in the press conference, I'm now starting to think that maybe Reece doesn't start. So if Reece doesn't start, we've got the choice between Malo Gusto and Cucurella. And as much as Malo Gusto's impressed me, for some reason, and this could come back to bite me in the arse, I think I'd go Cucurella there. I think Malo Gusto does a good job getting forward as well. But I do think we've got to be very defensively cute against Arsenal. And as you can see from my backline, I've obviously brought Axel Disasi back in. Axel Disasi, I actually think is going to be fit enough to play. They were saying they need to assess him, but I've just got a sort of feeling, again, trying to read into the language and the body language that Mauricio Pochettino gave off when he was speaking about the injuries. I sort of think Axel Disasi is going to play. And the other thing with this as well is, if Axel Disasi has not got 90 minutes in him, we know that Benoit Badiashile is now fit and available. However, Mauricio Pochettino, again, when he spoke about it, said, yeah, Badiashile will be available. And then just before he could move on, he went for the bench. So I don't know, language barrier sometimes, but I do personally think that Benoit Badiashile will be available only 4 minutes off the bench. And if it is the case that he's at maybe 60-70% and Axel Disasi is at 60-70%, then you could very much see Axel Disasi starting and maybe that being a swap at halftime or as the match progresses. And for those reasons, I have obviously got Levi Colwill at left back. I've spoken in depth before about the positional change of Levi Colwill, and it's something that as the games go on, I'm very much warming to. Now, here's where I really like the team, because I haven't actually changed anything here, have I? No. From my original lineup to this new lineup, nothing is changed. And this is what I really like, because last season we were seeing so much rotation in this Chelsea team. And, you know, I do sort of know that because of the squad size, you're always going to get that amount of rotation. But let's be honest, there's no coincidence that we had a really poor season and we could not nail down a solid starting lineup. So now when you look at it, okay, injuries have forced us to make a couple of changes in that backline, if I'm correct in predicting Pochettino's team. But anything ahead of the defence, everything's bang on there. We got Caicedo in the pivot, Enzo and Gallagher either side of him, Palmer on one side, Sterling on the other, and Jackson through the middle. Now, Raheem Sterling has massively elevated his performances under Pochettino. His numbers in every single metric are up in expected goals, expected assists, take-ons are almost double, which sort of brings light to my theory in saying Mauricio Pochettino has obviously told him, Sterling, take the handbrake off, mate. Take it to the defenders, which we love to see at the minute. Palmer was somewhat of a doubt, I think, but you know what? He's so crucial for us. Like, I think Cole Palmer, very, very much so, holds the keys to unlocking those defences. And Nicholas Jackson, I would 1,000,000% be throwing in there ahead of Amanda Broja in this match. I think Amanda Broja's brilliant. I think he's one for the future. But Nicholas Jackson's massively underrated, man. And I do think that he will find his shooting boots. Like, for me, Jackson's doing everything right apart from consistently putting the ball in the back of the net. But the fact that he scored against Burnley, very, very good. Obviously, now he's got 2 goals in 2 matches because he scored against Brighton in the Cup. He was unavailable for the match against Fulham, and now he's ready to go into this match. And again, I was speaking to this friend earlier. This friend of mine, it's my barber, he's an Arsenal fan, right? And we were talking about Saliba and the sort of defensive solidity that Arsenal have at the back. And I was saying that any defence would absolutely hate to play against Nicholas Jackson. Like, Nicholas Jackson is a nightmare for any defence. Whether he's got his shooting boots on or not, you know, that's once he gets the chance. But from a defender's point of view, right, you know, what Jackson does once he takes a shot at goal, that's up to the goalkeeper to save. But the defender can stop him getting that shot on goal. And one thing that you can't say that Jackson's done is not been able to get in those opportunities. Yes, he's been wasteful when he's got in those opportunities, but he has been in them situations. So he is a defender's worst nightmare, and I think he can cause havoc in this game given the chance. So let's quickly speak about two players that I've left out here. Obviously, the first one is Mykhailo Mudryk. Mykhailo Mudryk always looks good for the Ukraine, but again, scored an absolute screamer the other day. Looks really, really good for the Ukraine. I think came off with a niggle. It's a really hard one, but when you look at the form that Sterling's in, I don't think you can drop him. I just don't think you can drop a man in that sort of form. Palmer, for me, and people will say, oh, you're going over the top on this. I've seen it in my comments. I'm not. Believe me, I ain't going over the top on it. Cole Palmer is what this team have been absolutely crying out for. And at £40 million, he's looking like a steal. Game in, game out, he is providing real quality along that front line for Chelsea. And I just think that, as I say, he holds the keys to unlocking these defence. I don't think that you can drop Cole Palmer in this match. So, you keep Cole Palmer there, you can't drop Sterling, and that means, unfortunately, for Mykhailo Mudryk, the best he's probably going to get in this match is minutes off the bench. But he's a young player, he's got time. If you take away the price tag from it, I don't think that you can complain too much about that, because alternatively, you're going to upset someone either way, aren't you? If you drop Raheem Sterling, you're going to upset someone. You know, you're going to have sections of the fan base saying, well, you're dropping our most informed player at the minute. Systematically, no matter what, we're going to be playing two wingers, so even a change of formation. But I don't think we should be changing to suit individual players, no matter what price we paid for them, and no matter how good they've been performing on international duty and whatnot. I do think that having that structure and having that set, you know, like look at last season, right? Arsenal did absolutely brilliant. Whether they bottled the league at the end or not, they did brilliant. And game in, game out, barring maybe one player here and there through an injury or something like that, we could all predict their starting 11. Joel Bayer read out Arsenal's starting 11 that he'd like to see them with the other day, and obviously it was a little bit changed because of injuries and stuff like that, but for the most part, we could all predict who we're going to be in that starting 11, and that's how it was last season. So I do think having that, just that structure and that stability in that 11 is a massive thing, and that's what I'm starting to see here. That's why I'm sort of edging against bringing Ugochukwu in, bringing Mudryk in, Maatsen, those sort of players. But another player that I've got to speak about is Noni Madueke. 3 goals during the international break, looking really, really good. And I do think that the fact he hasn't been selected or brought on for that many minutes is leading people to believe that maybe there was a bigger situation there with the sort of footage that came out of him in a nightclub. I don't actually think there was. I just think that at the moment, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And I think it's more sensible to slowly bed these players in. And you could say, well, Noni Madueke's been here since last year. So's Mykhailo Mudryk. I get that and I understand that. But this is Mauricio Pochettino's first season in charge. And I think we should have a blank page at the start of Mauricio Pochettino's tenureship as manager. And then that's when we truly see what these players are about. That's when we start bedding them in. Last season is a complete write-off. So we're 8 games in. If Madueke's not playing football just yet, don't panic, okay? He's going to come back into that lineup. He's going to do really well for us. But at the minute, yeah, I get that to have the credit in the bank of being a first-team starter at the moment, you have to have been given the opportunity to have those starts to be able to prove your worth. And I understand that. And maybe if Madueke had had them starts, maybe if Mudryk had had them starts, that he would have proved his worth. But I just don't think you can change it. I really don't think you can change it at the minute. You've got to go Palmer, Jackson, Sterling. So that is the team that I truly believe Mauricio Pochettino is going to choose. And that is the team that I do think can get a win against Arsenal. Now, I said this with Joel earlier on in the week when we were previewing the game. Do I think that Chelsea are going to beat Arsenal because we are better than them? At this moment in time, no matter whether I'm a diehard Chelsea fan or anything like that, I can't come on this channel and not be honest with you. And honestly, at this moment in time, I don't think we're a better team than Arsenal. I think they're further on in their progression than us in this current crop or squad of players that they've got and in this moment in time that they're in. However, I do think if you match us up individual versus individual, we give them a real good run for their money. So when I think, okay, we're maybe not a better team than them, but why can we win? Obviously, the obvious things are we're at home, we're in pretty good form, but then again, so are they, But here's the main thing that I would hang it on, and from a sort of psychological point of view, I want you to stare at me here. Arsenal beating Manchester City was absolutely monumental. That was massive for those Arsenal players because there's sort of turning points in every sort of story, every journey, and this little sort of competition we're now seeing between Pep and Arteta, I believe that that could very much be the turning point, sort of in maybe Arteta's favour, at least in the short term, because what Arteta has been able to do is accumulate nearly as many points as Pep Guardiola over the last, 38 games last season, first 10 odd games of this season. So over the last sort of 45 odd games, Arteta has been able to accumulate nearly as many points as Pep Guardiola. But what Arteta has not been able to do is beat Pep Guardiola in the league. You know, they lost both home and away to Manchester City last season. Now, they've gone and got the win in the Community Shield. That was big, but we all know that the Community Shield is a glorified pre-season friendly, more or less, you know, with a sort of trophy on the line. However, when Manchester City went to the Emirates and Arsenal beat them, that was absolutely massive. It was the biggest win, in my opinion, of Arteta's tenureship. And, you know, you could say, well, no, you know, they won FA Cups. But no, I'm not having it. That is the biggest win that Arteta has got. And it's the biggest win that those players have got and the biggest sort of confidence boost that they've had to now go, right, they're our direct competition. They're going to be the favourites of the title and we have just gone and beat them. So inevitably, with every massive high will always come a low. And now I believe that there will be somewhat of an emotional drop-off for Arsenal. And I think that Chelsea can capitalise on that. Now, don't just take my word for it. Let's have a look at some sort of obvious examples, right? Let's think back to last season, okay? Arsenal play Manchester United. They lost at Old Trafford in the first fixture between these two teams. And then they're drawing 2-2 in the 90th minute against Manchester United. Eddie Nketiah scores a last gasp winner and it is absolute limbs at the Emirates. It goes completely mental. They're celebrating almost like they've won the league, and that's not me mugging them off, like I'd be doing the same. But you look at the emotional high that gave their players. Arsenal then didn't win for about 3 matches after that. I think it was actually 4 matches after that, you know. And not just from an Arsenal perspective. Look at Newcastle the other night. I was with Brian on the kickoff, and before we went live, we were watching that match, and Brian said to me, we're not winning today, as in Newcastle. Obviously, Brian, True Geordie's a Newcastle fan. He said to me, we're not winning today, because he said there's going to be an emotional drop-off from that PSG match. We just had the biggest night we've had in 20-odd years or whatever, beating PSG 4-1 at St James's Park, and now there's going to be an emotional come-down, and we're not going to win this match. And they did drop points. They were lucky to get a point against West Ham in that match. We look at Man City, when they clinched the title last season, at the Etihad against Chelsea, they then didn't win for 2 matches, you know. Man United, when they won the first trophy of Erik ten Hag's tenureship, beating Newcastle 2-0 at Wembley in the League Cup final, they then go and get pumped a week later by Liverpool 7-0 in their next Premier League match. So what I'm saying here is sometimes with a massive, massive high will always come a low. And if ever there was a time for Chelsea to capitalise on that, that is on Saturday. Now, do I think it will happen? It could happen. I think that the fact the international break has come there makes it a little bit less likely to, because now they've had a chance to regroup. If Chelsea had played Arsenal sort of 5-6 days after that Man City win, I'm saying, do you know what? I think we can pull off a bit of a shock result here. But I'm not writing us off. I think there's going to be a massive opportunity for us to do so. I think that our best performance of the season so far, actually, even with the wins we've now had, came against Liverpool. That's because Liverpool came to attack us and therefore left spaces for us to exploit. If you look at our lineup, once again, that's on screen now, this is, I say our lineup, this is what I'm predicting Pochettino to go with. I'd be very surprised if I was more than 2 players out on this lineup, right? But if you look at it, I've predicted Poch to go fairly defensive. You look at the 2 fullbacks, you've got Levi Colwill and Cucurella. I don't think that they're going to be massively bombing on. But although we associated Chelsea in the past of being a team that do massively bomb on and sort of overload when it comes to the fullbacks, I think that we're playing a new system. This is a new team now, and I think we've got a lot of defensive solidity there in Chelsea's lineup that I'm predicting Poch to go with. And therefore, we shouldn't be easy to score against. You look at our record in the Premier League so far, we've only conceded, I think it's 1 goal more than Arsenal, and we've been really good defensively. It's just been our problem scoring goals. But it looks like we sort of turned a corner with that now, with, you know, 6 goals in our last 2 Premier League games. I do definitely think we're going to get on the score sheet in this match. If I had to put my last penny on it, I think it's going to be a 1-1 or a 2-2 draw. But I'm praying for a Chelsea win, man. I do think we can do it. If we do it, I think it will be maybe 1-0 or 2-1, but I'm sitting on the fence a bit there. I'm throwing so much at the wall that maybe something will stick. I genuinely believe we can do it, and I do think that if we do it, then we go into this run of fixtures absolutely flying, you know, on the back of 4 wins. You know, 4 really good teams beat, and we make a massive, massive statement if we can win this match. And if we don't win this match, it's not really the end of the world. You know, Arsenal are going to be right up there or thereabouts, and our ambition is obviously to push for those top 5 spaces that will get you Champions League football. The match after this is against Brentford. They haven't been playing too well. I'm going to be at Stamford Bridge for that match. So, yeah, let me know your guys' thoughts. I wanted to really speed through this as quick as possible, you know, but I really wanted to get this one out for you so you can just get my final thoughts on this game. Let me know your thoughts. I want score predictions in the comments below. I want the lineup that you think Mauricio Pochettino is going to go with. I will be live tomorrow on the kickoff from 5 p.m. for this match. So if you want to see me very, very likely lose my shit, win, lose or draw over this match, you need to be on the kickoff live stream tomorrow. Get on the stream, get in the comments, watch me, Brian, Josh, Craig and Jacob on the stream tomorrow. Please do me a massive favour, subscribe to the channel if you're not already, like the video, share the video, do all the good stuff. I will see you all in the next one.